After this, he brought me to the gate facing east. There I saw the glory of God of Israel approaching from the east. His voice was like the sound of rushing water. The earth shone with his glory. The vision seemed like a vision I had seen when I came to destroy the city. Also, the visions were like the visions I had seen by the Kivar River, and I fell on my face. Adonai's glory entered the house through the gate facing the east. Next, a spirit took me up, brought me into the inner courtyard, and I saw Adonai's glory fill the house. I heard someone speaking to me from the house, and a man was standing by me. He said, "Human being, this is the place for my throne, place for the soles of my feet, where I will live among the people of Israel forever. The house of Israel, both they and their kings, will never again defile my holy name by their prostitution, by burying the corpses of their kings on their high places, or by placing their threshold next to my threshold and their door frames next to my door frames, with only a common wall between me and them. Yes, they defiled my holy name by the disgusting practices they committed, which is why I destroyed them in my anger. So now they should put their prostitution at a distance, and the corpses of their kings far away from me. Then I will live among them forever. You, human being, describe this house as the house of Israel, so that they will be ashamed of their crimes. Let them measure accurately. If they become ashamed of all they have done, show them the elevation and plan of the house, its exits and entrances, all its details and decorations, all its specifications, its designs, and its Torah. Stretch it for them to see, so they can observe the entrance design and its specifications, carry them out. This is Torah for the house. The whole surrounding area on the mountaintop will be especially holy. This is Torah for the house. These are the measurements of the altar in cubits. Cubit here is defined as a normal cubit, 18 inches, plus a handbreadth, 3 inches. The base, 1 cubit, 21 inches deep, and 1 cubit wide, with the molding surrounding it, and its rim about a hand span, 9 inches in width. The height of the altar is thus: from the base of the ground to the lower ledge, 3.5 feet, with the width 21 inches. From the lower ledge to the upper ledge, 7 feet, with the width again 21 inches. The hearth measures 7 feet high, with 4 horns on top of the hearth. The hearth is a square 21 feet on each of its 4 sides. The ledge measures square 24.5 feet on each of its 4 sides, molding around it 10.5 inches across, and its base 21 inches larger than the rest all the way around. Its steps face east. He said to me, "Human being, Adonai Elohim says, these are the regulations for the altar when the time comes to construct it. Offer burnt offerings on it and splash the blood against it. You are to give to the Kohanim, who are Levi'im, descended from the Zadok, and who approach to serve me, says Adonai Elohim. A young bull is a sin offering. You are to take its blood and put it on the 4 horns of the altar, the 4 corners of the ledge, and on the moldings all the way around. This is how you will purify it and make atonement for me. You are also to take the bull, which is the sin offering, and have it burned up at the designated place on the grounds of the house, outside the sanctuary. On the second day you are to offer a male goat without defect as a sin offering, and they are to purify the altar as they purified it with the bull. When you have finished purifying it, you are to offer a young bull without defect, a ram with a flock without defect. You are to present them before Adonai. The Kohanim will throw salt on them and offer them as a burnt offering to Adonai. Each day for 7 days you are to prepare a goat as a sin offering. They are also to prepare a young bull and a ram for the flock without defect. For 7 days they are to make atonement for the altar and cleanse it. This is the way they will consecrate it. When these days are over, then on the 8th day and afterwards, the Kohanim will present your burnt offerings on the altar and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, says Adonai Elohim. Then they brought me back by way of the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing the east, and it was shut. Adonai said to me, this gate will remain shut. It will not be open. No one will go through it because Adonai, the God of Israel, has gone through it. Therefore is to be kept shut. Only the prince, since he is a prince, is to sit there and eat his meal before Adonai. He is to enter through the vestibule, the gate, and leave the same way. Then he brought me through the north gate in front of the house. I looked, saw Adonai's glory filling the house of Adonai. Fell on my face. Adonai said to me, human being, pay attention. See with your eyes and hear with your ears everything I have told you about the regulations of Adonai's house and about its Torah. Pay attention to who can enter the house and who must be excluded from the sanctuary. You are to tell the rebels, the house of Israel, that this is what Adonai Elohim says. House of Israel, enough of all your disgusting practices. You brought in foreigners uncircumcised in both heart and flesh to be in my sanctuary and profane it, yes, my house. When you offer my food, the fat, the blood, thus in addition to all your disgusting practices, they broke my covenant. Instead of taking care of my holy things yourselves, you have put these things in charge of my sanctuary. Here is what Adonai Elohim says. No foreigner uncircumcised in both heart and flesh is to enter my sanctuary. No foreigner living among the people of Israel. Rather, the Levi'im, who went far away from me when Israel went astray, going astray with their idols, they will bear the consequences of their guilt. But they are to serve in my sanctuary. They will have charge of the gates of the house and serving the house. They will slaughter the burnt offerings and the sacrifices for the people, and they will attend and serve them. Because they served them in the presence of their idols and became the occasion of sin in the house of Israel. I'm raising my hand against them, says Adonai Elohim. They will bear the consequences of their guilt. They will not approach me to serve me in the office of Kohen, or approach any of the holy things as especially holy things. But they will bear their shame for their disgusting practices they committed. Yet I will put them in charge of the house and all of its maintenance and everything to be done in it. However, the Kohanim, who are Levi'im and descendants of Zadok, who will take care of my sanctuary when the people of Israel went astray from me, they are the ones who will approach me and serve me. It is they who will attend me and offer me the fat and the blood, says Adonai Elohim. They will enter my sanctuary, approach my table to minister to me and perform my service. Once they enter the gates of the inner courts, they are to wear linen clothing. They are not to wear any wool while serving the gates of the inner courtyard or inside it. They are to wear linen turbans on their heads and linen undercloths on their bodies, and they are not to wear anything that makes them sweat. Before going out, the outer courtyard, they are to remove the clothes in which they minister, lay them on the holy rooms, and put on other clothes so that they won't transmit holiness to the people by means of their clothing. They are not to shave their heads or to let their hair grow long, but must keep their hair carefully trimmed. No Kohen is to drink wine when he enters the inner courtyard. They may not marry a widow or a divorcee, but must marry virgins descended from the house of Israel, or a widow whose deceased husband was a Kohen. They are to teach my people the difference between holy and common, enable them to distinguish between clean and unclean. They are to be judges in controversies. They are to render decisions in keeping with my rulings. At all my designated festivals, they are to keep my laws and regulations, and they are to keep my Shabbats holy. They are to not come to any dead person, because this would make them unclean. However, for father, mother, son, daughter, brother, or sister who has had no husband, they are to make themselves unclean. After a Kohen has been purified, he has to wait 7 days. Then, on the day he enters the sanctuary, when he goes into the inner courtyard to minister the sanctuary, he is to offer his sin offering, says Adonai Elohim. Their inheritance is to be this: I myself am their inheritance. You are not to grant them any possession in Israel. I myself am their possession. They are to eat the grain offering, sin offering, guilt offerings, and everything is in Israel devoted to God will be theirs. The first of all the first fruits, everything, every voluntary contribution, everything from all your offerings will be the Kohanim. You are also to give the Kohanim the first of your dough, so that a blessing will rest on your house. The Kohanim are not to eat anything, bird or animal, that dies naturally or is torn to death. When you divide the land by lot for inheritance, you are to set aside an offering for Adonai, a holy portion of Israel, holy portion of the land. Its length is to be 25,000 cubits, that is 8 miles, and its width 10,003 miles. That this entire region is to be holy. Of this there is to be reserved for a holy place an area of 875 feet square, with 87.5 feet for open land all around it. Alongside with its region, you are to measure a length of 8 miles and a width of 3 miles. It is to be the sanctuary, which is to be especially holy. It is a holy portion of the land. It is for the Kohanim who serve in the sanctuary, who approach to minister to Adonai. There will be a place for the house and a place set aside for the sanctuary. A portion 8 by 3 miles will be owned by the Levi'im who serve in the house. Will also have 20 gatekeepers' rooms. You are to give the city possession of an area alongside the offering of the holy portion, 1.5 feet by 8 miles. It will be for the whole house of Israel. Prince is to have the territory on both sides, a holy offering of the city's holdings. It will extend westward to the westward border of the land and eastward to the eastward border of the land, length for as far side one as its 2 parts to the far side of the other. It will be the same as the length of one tribal portions. His possession in Israel will be limited to this, and henceforth my princes will not wrong my people, but will give the land of the house of Israel according to their tribes. Adonai Elohim says this: Princes of Israel, that should be enough for you. Get rid of violence and looting. Do what is right and just, and stop evicting my people from their land, says Adonai Elohim. You are to have honest balanced scales, an honest ephah, 1 bush of dry measure, an honest bat, 5-gallon liquid measure. The ephah and the bat are to contain the same volume. The bat is to contain 1/10 of homer, and an ephah is to contain 1/10 of a homer. Homer is set the standard of the measurements. Also, the shekel is to be 20 garas. Your manna will be the sum of 20 shekel piece, and 25 shekel piece, and 15 shekel piece. This is the offering you are to make: 1/6 of a bushel from every 10 bushels of wheat. You are to give 1/6 of a bushel from every 10 bushels of barley. The law for olive oil is the 1/2 gallon from every 50 gallons, which is the same as 10 bats or 1 homer, since 10 bats equals a homer. From the flock, take 1 sheep from every 200 being pastured in Israel. All these are to be used for grain offerings, burnt offerings, and peace offerings, to make atonement for them, says Adonai Elohim. All the people of the land are to present this offering to the prince of Israel. The prince's obligation will be to present the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, the drink offerings at the feasts on Rosh Hashanah and on Shabbat. At all the designated times of the house of Israel, he is to prepare his sin offering, grain offerings, burnt offerings, and peace offerings to make atonement for the house of Israel. Adonai Elohim says this: on the first day of the first month you are to take a young bull without defect and purify the sanctuary. The Kohen will take some of the blood from the sin offering and put it on the door frames of the house, on the 4 corners of the altar, the ledge, and all the supports of the gate of the inner courtyard. You are to do this the 7th day of the month of everyone who has sinned inadvertently or through ignorance. Thus you will make atonement for the house. On the 14th day of the first month you will have Pesach, feast 7 days long. Matzah will be eaten. On that day the prince will provide for himself and for all the people of the land a young bull as a sin offering. On the 7th day of the feast he will provide a burnt offering to Adonai: 7 young bulls and 7 rams without defect, daily for 7 days, and a male goat daily for sin offering. He is to provide a grain offering, a bushel of grain for a young bull, and a bushel for a ram, and for each bushel of grain, a gallon of olive oil. On the 15th day of the 7th month, during the feast of Sukkot, he has to do it the same thing 7 days in regards to the sin offerings, burnt offerings, grain offerings, and olive oil.